When it comes to the way that they see the conflict with Houthis, here is what Rubio said, Scott. It doesn't seem that they have a clear message, clear sort of message to Houthis, or a clear image of what would be the future of this conflict. Here is what Rubio said.
Have these people controlling which ships can go through and which ones cannot. And so your question is, how long will this go on? It will go on until they no longer have the capability to do that.
So, how they can measure that? How is that possible?
It can't. Marco Rubio is an idiot. I mean,
It
I
seems
hate
the
to say
same
that.
sort of policy that we've been witnessing with Russia. They say we'd sanction Russia, fighting Russia in Ukraine, just Russia would collapse from within.
Uh, Except, I think this administration understands the difference is Russia has proven through 3 years of sustained combat that it is not a power to be trifled with. And there are consequences for getting peace wrong with Russia, which is why I think right now they're speaking. President Putin and Trump are speaking, and I don't think the phone call is Trump. All right, Vladimir, this is the way it's going to be. You're going to do this, you're going to do that, or else we're going to do this. We're going to shut your economy down. I don't think that's the way the conversation's going at all. I think it's hey, Mr. President, we're concerned about this. Our people have talked, and we've mentioned the following. These are some things that we'd like you to consider. And Putin will say, thank you very much for saying this. On this one, we think there's some way we can work. This one is more difficult. We're going to have to do some more massaging on this. And then Trump isn't going to go, no, you will do it our way, or we will bomb you and make your capital shake. It doesn't work that way with Russia. Because Russia's powerful, they have nuclear weapons, and they've proven over 3 years that they can beat NATO in a stand-up fight, which includes the United States conventionally. So but the Houthi, I mean, on the one hand, again, people should be advising Pete, hey, Pete, we already tried the 3-carrier thing. Didn't work. But what happens is they start hitting us with missiles, and we have to pull outside of their range. And then the next thing you know, we've extended our time on station until we deplete all the ammunition. And then we have to withdraw, and now we're bankrupt. We don't have follow-on carrier. Pete, this isn't a good idea. They don't quit. They don't quit at all. But no, we're arrogant. We think we can bond them into submission. And Rubio's statement is, I will make the following prediction, that the carrier battle groups will withdraw from station before the Houthi quit, because the Houthi will never quit, and the carrier battle groups will run out of ammunition. That's a guaranteed outcome here. And what we're going to kill now, what are we going to do? Go into collective punishment? Because at some point in time, we're going to get frustrated, because we're going to be bombing things, and it's not stopping the Houthi from launching their missiles against ships. And so we get frustrated. So now what? We embrace the Israeli tactic of collective punishment. We start bombing, civilian areas, and then the death toll goes up. And now we're guilty of committing genocide. And what are we going to do? Put a counter blockade on them and prevent humanitarian goods from coming in, so that we have millions of starving Yemeni children like we have had in the past. Understand that didn't cause the Houthi to stop fighting before, by the way. I just want to let everybody know that we have already done the starve the children in order to make them submit a game, and it didn't work. It's just going to blow back on us. It's going to make us look bad, and it's going to make us look weak, ultimately. This is just the opposite of peace through strength. This is weakness by pretending to be strong when you're not.
Do you think if the situation escalates between the United States and Yemen, that is the Trump administration able to force the Arab states into the conflict with Yemen?
No, they've already done it. I mean, again, what are we asking? We're asking Saudi Arabia to commit forces, and they've done that, and they got beat by the Houthi. It's been there, done that. They got the T-shirt. United Arab Emirates, you want to get them to come back in? No, they've done that. They got beat. And remember what happened. The Houthi launched drones that took out oil, threatened critical strategic infrastructure. And they brought in the totality of their air power backed by American intelligence, and they couldn't stop it. Couldn't stop it. It's a big country. Look at it. It's big. It's not easy to fly aircraft over that country and get that. During the Gulf War in Western Iraq, we used to have combat sorties, F-15Es, Strike Eagles, flying at night and A-10s flying at day. But night was the most popular time for the Iraqis to launch. And we'd have the combat air patrols over there, and we'd have all the intelligence. And when the Iraqis would fire a missile, sometimes we were only 5 or 6 minutes away. But by the time we came in to the target, they were gone. They were gone. There was nothing to bomb. And so we futilely look around and we find trucks moving down the highway that aren't missile related, but they're fuel tankers. We say, oh, well, they're long and they're cylindrical, and we're pissed, so bomb them. So we blow up the trucks. We didn't stop the missiles. We didn't kill a single Iraqi Scud launcher in the entire war. Targeting is difficult, especially over a tough thing. We try to put loitering drones over the MQ-9s, and the Houthis are shooting them down. I mean, I forget, they've shot down a whole bunch of them. These are expensive things. It adds up to a lot of money. But they basically shot down over a squadron's worth of MQ-9 Reaper drones. Over a squadron. We've lost a squadron of Reaper drones over Yemen in this fight. and so I don't know what Hegseth, is he going to reinvent, the laws of war? Suddenly, because Pete Hegseth comes in and he has his little infantry thing, and I'm a war fighter and I run with the guys. And because I run with the guys, we're going to do things more efficiently. Well, there's been professional military people out there trying to accomplish this mission before you were Secretary of Defense, Pete. And they can't do it because it's impossible. You don't have enough aircraft. We diverted in the Gulf War over 2,500 sorties into Western Iraq. 2,500. And you got a carrier battle group with a wing, one wing, dozens of aircraft, dozens, not thousands, dozens, not hundreds, dozens. And you're going to cover the expanse of Yemen with that? Are you high? And the answer is he must be, because this isn't going to work. It can't work. It's a military impossibility. We don't have the resources to begin to do this. We would have to literally bring in almost the totality of America's existing strike capacity and base it on land bases around Yemen and flood the zone 24/7, which we did in Western Iraq during the Gulf War, and we still didn't accomplish the mission. So, no, we can't do this. It's impossible to do this. Satellites are good, but at the end of the day, it's what's in the analyst's head. There was a time when we had analysts who spent their entire career looking at a target, their entire career. And God, they knew everything. I mean, if a mouse dug a hole in the field next to it, they would say, that mouse doesn't normally dig a hole this time of year, so there's something doing that. So let's look at what caused the vibrations. I'm being ridiculous here, but I'm just saying that that's the intimacy they had with the target. Then what happened is the Cold War ended, and we started this whole thing where we said, well, we can't. It's not cost efficient to hire somebody and have them sit in the same desk for 30 years. I mean, that's just not good. We need to have these people go out there and get more. So instead of being an absolute expert on your subject, we became, these people with diversity. And I saw this when I was doing the Iraq thing. The CIA would bring in their photo interpreter teams. And, initially we had people that actually had studied the target. And you go, okay, these guys know. But then they retired or pushed aside. They brought in these new people who had been doing it for 6 months. You don't know anything about a target in 6 months. And they were briefing. They had no clue what they were briefing. They couldn't even pronounce the name right. They had no clue of the history of the target. And then by the time they became familiar through repetition, they were rotated out and a new group were rotated in. And this is what happens in CENTCOM. You don't have any experts in CENTCOM. You have specialists who get rotated in. They take control of a target thing. But the other thing is, there's nobody that has the big picture anymore. They're all looking at tiny little fractions, but they're not allowed to make their conclusions. They have to drive it up because intelligence now is just so carefully managed. They have layers of management overboard. I used to be, as a junior captain, God. Why? Because I was the guy, junior captain. I was given the job of doing it, and I would do it. And I was responsible for briefing the big guy. There might be, one or two layers of management, but they didn't get in the way too much. They were just like, well, what do you got here? Let's facilitate in here. But today the analyst has to give it to his, initial management who, looks at it, proofreads it. The other thing is they farm it out. It used to be you'd work right there at Central Command, and they come down and you'd have to go and talk to the boss, and the boss would have to look in your eyes and say, well, how do you know this? And if he sees fear, he's like uncertainty, whatever. Nope. Now they break it up into packages and they send it out here, there, and everywhere. And we saw that when we had that idiot airman up in Massachusetts leak documents. Why was a guy in Massachusetts, a reservist, having access to sensitive, intelligence documentation about a conflict in Russia? Because the way we've decentralized this is that was his task to given it. He doesn't know anything. It's a cut and paste job. There's no analysis happening here. It's cut and paste. He's putting together, assembling into a product that gets set up, and the product is meaningless. Go look at those documents. The stuff that's in there is wrong, most of it. But it's got top secret information and all this stuff. There's no genuine analysis there. There's no effort to sit there and actually take the stuff, eat it, digest it, and to regurgitate it as some sort of intelligence that's derived and thought out, etc. They don't allow people to do that anymore. It's literally just a cut and paste job area. There's no experts on anything. I challenge CENTCOM to bring your Houthi expert here and have a discussion. They won't. But the person isn't an expert. How long have you been doing the job? Well, I was rotated in last September. It's not his fault or her fault. They have a career and they get rotated here, there, and everywhere. But there used to be a time when you had genuine experts who knew the language, knew the culture, had done tours over there. But the problem is they went native. You can't have an analyst going native. You can't have an analyst saying, yeah, well, when I was in Sana'a, well, you were in Sana'a? Yeah. Why would you want to be there? You met a Houthi? Yeah, man. Did they corrupt you? Did they take control of you? We have to replace this guy and bring in somebody who's never been there, never met them, doesn't speak the language, because then we'll know that his analysis is pure. Instead of having somebody who's there and knows the people. We don't do that anymore. It takes too much time. Nobody has the patience. And to be honest, nobody wants that guy or gal. Why? Because the way our politicians work today is they want the intelligence community to reinforce conclusions they've already made. They don't want to sit there and have somebody tell, especially somebody like Donald Trump. You think Donald Trump wants to have somebody tell him what's going on? No, Donald Trump sits there, he's the best at everything. And, well, I have read, I am the greatest expert on the Houthi in America today. And so I'm going to dictate outcomes, and I don't want anybody coming to me and telling me I'm wrong. You can't even get into his office to tell him he's wrong. And the first time you do that is the last time you're in his office. That's not the way this works. Bring on Ray McGovern. He used to brief the president and the vice president. Ask him, was it his job to say, Mr. President, how do I make you happy today? Or was his job to say, Mr. President, this is the real state of affairs in the world today that you got to deal with as commander in chief. These are problems, and that's what you need. But we don't do that anymore. I was hoping that Tulsi would change that. And to be fair, we're still so young into this. I don't even know if they've decided how they're going to brief the president and what format they're going to brief him and who's going to do the briefing yet. But the point is, somebody has to get next to him and tell him he's wrong. And just say, Mr. President, you're wrong. This is the truth. This is how it works. Somebody did that with Russia because we saw him break from the Keith Kellogg pattern. And he's taken on a new. So somebody got to him. Maybe it was Steve Witkoff after meeting with Putin. I think it happened before that. I think something happened that triggered him sending Steve Witkoff instead of Kellogg. But somebody got to him about Russia and said, you're wrong. Because you saw a dramatic departure from the way he was dealing with Russia and Ukraine to what he's doing now. Somebody needs to do that about the Houthi, somebody and Iran. Get to him and say, this ain't the way, this isn't going to work. This is a disaster. But now we're committed to the fight. That's the problem. Peace through strength. Well, God, now that you're committed to the fight, anything less than total victory, especially the way that Rubio and Hegseth have articulated it, is a sign of weakness. And you can't have peace through weakness. So we're in trouble. We're in a lot of trouble right now.
And when you talk about someone in the United States, or can be Xi or Putin talking to Trump in terms of the Iranian nuclear program, because we know that there was a meeting among the three leaders, the president of Iran, and a meeting between Russia, China, and Iran.
Well, see, that's what gave me the faith that Trump was taking what I call the indirect approach, recognizing the political. Because if somebody came to him and told him the reality, which is, this is my personal belief of what I believe the reality of is in Iran today. They desperately want good relations with the West, from the supreme leader on down. But politically, they've been betrayed by the West too many times, and the hardliners who have come to into dominance, they don't trust the West anymore. They don't trust the West at all. And so it's impossible for those who want better relations with the West to seek better relations with the West through direct interaction with the West. That's what the president wants to do, but he's not going to be allowed to do it. China and Russia have built trust within Iran, and again, this is reading tea leaves because I'm not familiar with the negotiating record between Russia and Iran on the strategic agreement that they've signed, but I do know that I believe there's clauses in there that talk about Russia providing nuclear power plants for Iran. This is big because that means that Iran is departing from its past posture that says we will build our own nuclear power plants and we will provide the fuel for these. Therefore, we need the entirety of the fuel cycle under our control. For Russia to come in and say, no, we're going to build these nuclear power plants and we're going to provide the fuel for these plants, it takes away the argument that Iran must have this for their national survival and national security. And I think that was done on purpose. The Iranians aren't stupid. They're very smart. And so to allow that to be in there and to embrace it and to sign it, it's a signal from the Iranians saying that we are creating an off-ramp from the position that we currently hold. And I believe that China is also involved in negotiating for the potential of an off-ramp. I was hopeful that Trump was briefed on this because he had conversations with Putin, and that he would say, okay, then what I need to do is shut down the potential of direct negotiations between the West and Iran. I need to breathe legitimacy into the alternative, because as long as you're pretending that there's a venue, a potential venue between West Iranian negotiations, that de-emphasizes the Russian off-ramp, it's not going to get the attention it needs. It's always going to be on the back burner or not even out of the refrigerator. What you need to do is shut down the potential of direct negotiations, and therefore the United States will turn to Russia. And before that was insane, but hell, now we got the United States and Russia working together in the Security Council to pass resolutions about Syria, to shut down anti-Russian resolutions that used to pass with American support all the time. We're in a new age, and if they continue diplomatic improvements, we're seeing the potential where the United States would be willing to hand off to Russia the responsibility for taking the lead, at least initially, on getting the Iranian nuclear program restructured in a way that doesn't make it conducive for escalation into a military program. Because that's all we want. That's what Trump says he wants. He's not after regime change anymore. He wants to get rid of that and get Iran back on the track of lifting sanctions and being part of the normal world. I take him at face value. So there is this potential of Russia and China helping the United States out. And as you said, Iran sat down with those leaders. I think that this was the direction that that we were heading. I don't know how. Right now, we need smart people to give the United States an off-ramp. This is what we need. And to be honest, the way this thing is cured is we get Israel to stop bombing Gaza and to resume the ceasefire and to send humanitarian goods back in. That cures. It doesn't cure the whole thing, but it stops the trigger for the Houthi. And then once you can get the Houthi to back off, then you can move in and try and create a framework that doesn't allow for hair trigger responses like this. and then, once Iran has better relations and stuff, we could gradually simmer down tensions in the Middle East so that, we don't have the ever-present threat of Houthi intervention or Israeli intervention. But the first thing that has to happen, the only way this gets solved, it's not going to be solved through military strength. The only way this gets solved is the way it was solved to begin with: a ceasefire, humanitarian goods, Israel standing down. Is the Trump administration capable of doing that? I don't know. I'm losing hope every day that they are, but that's the only way we get out of this.